I don't know. Say it with me. I don't know. Good God, it is liberating. I am a towering mountain of ignorance. I don't know. We're taught to believe that everything has a reason. And so we observe the world, we see what happened, and then we define the thing that happened as the reason the thing happened. But I think a lot of the time we end up mixing up thinking something with knowing something. This is why it can be so impossible to talk about certain topics with certain people. They've tied those suppositions to themselves so tightly with knots of narrative and constructed reality and values that there's just no untying it. And maybe unsurprisingly, in those situations, the best course of action is just to be friends. Maybe even ask them about that thing that they've created, because to them, it's immensely valuable. The world as we perceive it, as we've built it inside of ourselves, is a lie that we tell to ourselves, not out of deception, but out of necessity. We have no other choice. We simply cannot understand the world as it is, and so we construct. But sometimes I just have to tell myself the thing that is definitely true, the truest thing I can say, which is that I don't know.
Never know.
This is the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast with Bob Pondillo and Cass Midgley.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 148 of the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast. I'm Cass Midgley. Today, Dr. Bob Pondillo and I interview Henry and Charlie Smith from Colorado. They're in their 70s, married 47 years. Henry's a former minister, now atheist. Charlie has retained some of her faith, and we witness how they remain respectful and loving in spite of their religious differences. What comes up for me this week in light of this interview is how each of us, as stewards of our own happiness, choose the paths that we see fit for us. Some might look at the relationship of our guests today and say, no thank you. Others might envy it and say, I wish I could have that. And of course, there is no right or wrong answer to this. You do you. A question was posed this week on the Secret Life After God Facebook site by Brian Peck. He wrote, "What does your heart long for?" I just immediately started writing my answer with no forethought, and I was a bit surprised by what rose up out of my own heart in response. I wrote, "It seems in all of this talk of agency and individuation and differentiation that the most mature version of my heart would long for nothing, ideally. That I would be self-sufficient, self-soothing, etc. That I would marry myself because anything less would be expecting too much of others, or being needy would apply too much pressure on another. That no one could be trusted with my heart. That love is too risky and may in fact be a myth. After all, we're just animals, and only here for a brief time and relatively meaningless. But if I'm honest, my heart longs for love. And if that's a weakness, then color me weak. Somewhat hopelessly weak, FML, which is short for fuck my life. What I mean by all that is, as ex-Christians, we're having to rediscover what it means to be human, but more specifically, what it means to be us, ourselves. We were taught to not trust our heart. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" Unquote. So we were led to distrust the core of our beings, that it lies to us, that there's no good in it, no redemptive value. It's sick and it cannot be cured. And besides, no one can understand or decipher its message. It's the source of confusion. It's led around by emotions. Don't listen to it. And some of us stopped listening to it. But as we know now, it went on talking, and we called it God. But we struggled to differentiate, as Josey said on last week's episode, between what is God's voice, what is Satan's, and what is ours. Only one of which was to be trusted. In our work to dig our souls out from under the rubble of our demolitioned Christianity and reconnect with our truest selves, we've borrowed some techniques from science, namely differentiation, which has to do with identifying ourselves apart from that which we have unhealthily relied on as an authority over us. For example, our parents, our domineering friends, our lovers, and most of all, God. But the thing about love is that neither religion nor science has the first clue how to understand it. We see little signs of love in a few animal species, but it is a big fucking deal to us Homo sapiens sapiens. It makes us do crazy things, experience surreal elation and gut-wrenching pain. The sense I got from all my exposure to the psychology of agency and differentiation was that in order to be mature, evolved, even healthy, I had to not need anyone. And perhaps semantics cannot capture the nuance of this elusive thing called love, but I began to say, I don't need this person or these friends, but I want them. I choose them from a place of strength, with more to give and receive in the relationship because I'm strong, independent, and detached. But it's a fine line between need and want. Perhaps Jeremiah was onto something when he said, who can really understand the heart? But when the question was posed, what does your heart want? It didn't say power, independence, detachment, even maturity. My heart said, I want to love and be loved. It said intimacy. It said other people who I can be myself around, with whom I can share my secrets and my sunsets. Someone with whom I am struck and with whom I can fuck, where trust and respect are mutual and love is reciprocated, where laughter is shared over comedy that few others could appreciate. My heart wanted to know and be known, to share our common interest and be stretched by our differences. A friend, a lover, and I'm taking back this word, a soulmate. Because for me, at the end of the day, this life is so fucking hard and so fucking meaningless that the last bastion for sustainable joy, the safest space from stupidity and absurdity, is a small, select community of friends, and everyone would profile what that looks like differently, but most importantly, and I dare say desperately, one person with whom which I am the most intimate I can possibly be and not be alone. When I was a Christian, this was summed up best by Rich Mullins, a lonely, single, soul-searching man. Rest in peace.
And if you find a love that's tender, and if you find someone who's true, then thank the Lord, He's been doubly good to you.
Even a Christian like Rich Mullins, and a very honest one at that, had to admit that you're damn lucky you've won the lottery when you find someone who's tender and true and will put up with your shit. Henry and Charlie personify this today. And as a cynical, melancholy, global perspective thinker who has no hope for the future of humanity, I personally regard this love, this companionship, this partnership as the pinnacle of existence, the chief redeeming value of being alive. As complex and painful as it is, both in the maintenance and in the inevitable loss of that loved one, this rings true for me, and it's the famous quote from Alfred Lord Tennyson. "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." We taped this conversation on March 19th, 2017. We interview people you don't know about a subject no one wants to talk about. We hope to encourage people in the process of deconstructing their faith and help curb the loneliness that accompanies it. We think the world is a better place when more people live by sight, not by faith. Subscribe to our podcast or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Our show is available on most podcast platforms. Also, you can support us monetarily in 2 easy ways. You can pledge $1 or more per episode through Patreon. That's patreon.com/EA podcast. Or you can leave a lump sum donation through PayPal at our website, everyone'sagnostic.com. The smallest contribution is greatly appreciated. Our opening monologue is an excerpt from a YouTube by Hank Green titled Towering Mountain of Ignorance. The music behind it is Never Know by Jack Johnson. The segue music on this episode was created by the Barry Orchestra, found at barryorchestra.bandcamp.com. Thank you for listening, and be a yes-sayer to what is. Okay, so Henry and Charlie Smith. And you're calling from where?
Okay, we're calling from Longmont, Colorado.
Hey, how about that?
45 minutes after we back out our driveway, we can be sitting at about 500 elk.
Ooh.
And the mountains. It's beautiful.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
That sounds great. 500 elk.
Yeah,
Wow.
just sitting up in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Wow.
Oh, absolutely.
So you contacted me, and I can't remember the circumstance, but are you a listener of the show?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
I'm the heretic.
All right.
Oh, I see. So Charlie still is a believer.
Yes, I am.
Oh, well, isn't that interesting? How long have you guys been married?
Oh, let's
47
see.
years.
47 years.
47 in April, yep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you figured out ways to not let the religious thing bother you, huh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why your story is valuable.
Yeah, we're going to
Just-
find out about that.
I mean, other than just its raw form, but I know there's a lot of couples out there
oh,
that
boy.
this religious deconversion stuff has put some tension on the marriage.
Tension or split it completely.
Yeah.
We know people.
Yeah, for sure.
that divorce.
Yeah, what's
Sad.
kind of interesting is that we both took similar paths.
Oh,
And instead of becoming non-theistic, Charlie just went super liberal.
Yeah.
well, what path were you on originally then? Was it like Baptist or something like that? Or
I was born in a sect called Plymouth Brethren.
Okay.
Early 1800s, UK split off from the Church of England. They thought
okay.
the Church of England was being too secular, so they started this thing. And it was, and this was back in the 40s that I was born. And at that time, it was fundamentally evangelical.
all right, gotcha.
So I was raised fundamental evangelical all my life.
Plymouth Brethren, and are they kind of separatists as far as like come away and be separate, or like don't associate with worldly things, or
All of that, yeah.
yeah, not the kind where the women grow their hair out and they have to wear skirts?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they did back in those days, but, you know, to be very honest with you, I don't even know where they still exist.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
What we used to call the baggy pants Christian.
Why so?
Waka waka. What do you mean? What does that mean?
There's just, well, I mean, you were just plain old everyday people, you know, and nothing fancy, and it's totally different than what you see nowadays. A sweet bunch, just lovely people.
Yeah, not the prosperity
Yeah.
doctrine.
No, no.
No, and certainly not charismatic. Back in those days, if you spoke in tongues, you was out, bro.
Okay.
That's how they said it too. You out, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so they had, conservative, stick to the Bible, and kind of a de-emphasis on the emotional or the sensational.
Yeah. More like Lutherans almost. Only without the
yeah,
the
you
stuff.
know what's interesting about the Plymouth Brethren were, and I didn't realize this until actually I became an Episcopalian. And as we all know, Episcopalians are very close to the Church of England.
Right. Right.
Okay, so I began to notice that a lot of the things that the PBs did was just the opposite of the Church of England. Okay, so the Church of England had priests and they had organization. The Plymouth Brethren did not. They had no paid pastor. The Plymouth Brethren had no music during the worship.
Mm-hmm.
The worship service was not liturgical. It was open, free. You know, somebody would stand up and say, I'd like to, for us to sing this hymn, and then they'd do it a cappella. And I love that. I love that a
Oh,
cappella.
wow.
Yeah. We got Henry's background. What about you, Charlie? What about your childhood upbringing? I understand, I read a little bit of your bio that you were, for a while, sent to Catholic school, and the nuns almost talked you into being a nun, and your parents said, whoa, whoa, whoa.
We're out of here.
No,
way,
no
bro.
kidding. Yeah. I was raised traditional Episcopalian. Actually, my mother's background was Southern Baptist, and when she was in nursing school, which was a Catholic hospital, she loved the reverence and the respect in the Catholic church that she would go to there, because I think that was a requirement. They probably had to go to chapel.
Yeah.
And she was about to become a Catholic. And then she met and fell in love with my dad, and he was Episcopalian, so she converted to Episcopalian, and we were all raised Episcopalian. And the year that we went to Catholic school, my oldest sister was in one junior high. They had built a new junior high. So my middle sister was going to go to that, and I was going to be in the elementary school. So the folks, they had just built this new Catholic school, and the folks thought that would be a good experience for the girls. So they put Frances and me in there, and it was good in some ways. But the nun that taught me had me convinced that I was going to go to hell if I died, knowing I should become a Catholic, and didn't. So then I decided I'd become a nun. I don't remember this, but Papa said, yeah, you came home one day and announced you were going to become a nun. We said, that's enough of that. They're out. Wow. So we were out of there. Yeah.
So did you finish the school year? Or they just immediately
I think we finished the school year.
Yeah.
I was 10 and Frances was around 12. She was in 7th grade. I was in 4th grade.
Yeah.
So there was absolutely no doubt in the nun's mind that you were going to hell and you better be a Catholic nun.
That was what this particular nun, I think she was just so anxious to convert me to Catholicism. I don't know if that was the general consensus, but yeah, they were.
Well, this goes back 50 years or so, too, or more than that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was 10, so yeah, 62 years ago.
My gosh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So then what, you were raised Episcopalian.
Yeah.
And then I think I read in your bio that you went on a trip overseas with Henry. Mm-hmm. And you saw a different culture, different religion. Because they were in the wrong religion, in the wrong culture, they were going to hell, and that didn't seem right. I mean, something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I had always struggled with that because I grew up in the Baptist belt. And so a lot of my friends were Baptist, and you had the fundamental beliefs, and they didn't really try to proselytize me necessarily, but I just never could understand. And when we were in evangelical churches or more fundamental churches, I could never understand that philosophy that a loving God would condemn someone to a bad afterlife simply because they were being true to who they were. Because as I put in my bio, for me, being an Episcopalian, and even now, it's part of my fiber. I'm a seamstress, so that probably enters. Minnie and I were talking about that. You have a piece of cotton, you wash it in hot water, it's going to shrink. Well, this is part of my fiber and part of who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
may I make a comment there?
You may, if it's okay with Charlie.
This morning I was saying, I don't really know that I understand this fiber of your being. And she says, I'm a seamstress, and I slap my head. Of course, I understand now.
Well, we often say here on the show that, because I was born in Oklahoma, I walked right into Christianity. I mean, it's the water that we're swimming in,
Exactly.
You're Episcopalian because you walked right into it, and it's part of your, it's the hot water that your cotton was soaked in.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. And it's who you are. And I think, would a loving God punish a person who is being true to who they are?
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what they say.
Well, for being born in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Charlie, you also said that you were born in the Baptist belt. I've heard of the Bible belt. Where's the Baptist belt?
Well, I guess the Bible belt is probably a better term.
Where was that?
Dallas.
Oh, in
Dallas. It was Dallas, Texas. Yeah, Texas. Southeast Dallas specifically. So it was a very most of the people there were Baptists. I kind of stuck out because I had gone to Catholic school, so they were all convinced that I was Catholic, and so probably I wasn't saved, as far as they were concerned.
Oh, my wife tells me about that all the time, about how they just hate those cat lickers when they're, they call them cat lickers, believe it or not.
Well, they didn't really, they weren't really mean, but they just, I think they kind of pitied me because, gosh, poor things.
Poor things. Bless her heart. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, they weren't Christians. They just weren't Christians.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember growing up, the Baptist, the Catholics were lost.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lutherans, too. That's the way the Lutherans felt about Catholics, yeah.
And I don't think they really understood what an Episcopalian was. I mean, that was...
No, I think you're right. I think to the evangelical world, the Episcopalians are a mystery. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but it was something very special to me because I grew up with a family of faith, and they had a strong faith because Mama had cancer at a very young age, almost died when I was 4. So, and they never lost their faith. And
sure.
then she was,
Right.
She was diagnosed with terminal cancer when I was 12.
Yeah.
Terminal bone cancer.
Oh.
And they never lost their faith.
Well, here's the thing about faith. One of the things that we need as human beings, and this goes back to Ernest Becker's denial of death and such, is that we need to know that our life matters, that there's meaning to this, that this isn't random chaos, that the universe is indifferent to our existence. No, there needs to be a trajectory, an arc of justice. There needs to be fairness. There needs to be some kind of meaning.
Yeah.
So when tragedy strikes and hardship and suffering, like cancer, etc., you're either going to lose your faith because you're pissed at the untruth of
injustice.
This.
Yeah.
Like this is not fair, and it doesn't seem like this is making it fair or whatever.
True.
Or you're going to double down on your faith because you need more than ever for life to make sense. Your mom's death, for her to just come and live 47, 43 years, however many years she lived.
43. Yeah.
And then she's gone, and almost like a bird on a windshield or a bug on a windshield. I mean, it's like it can't be that meaningless. And so, I think people are going to say, God is good. We had her for 43 years. The silver lining is this. And so, I mean, it's polarizing. Suffering and tragedy is polarizing. Some are going to lose their faith. Some are going to double down.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So you double down, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my dad, it's interesting. My dad, actually, when he married my mother, he was widowed. His first wife died when my brother was like 2 weeks old.
Oh, my.
And so he was a widower with a 6-year-old, and then he was 49 when she died.
Yeah.
So, he lost 2 wives before he was 50, but it was a tragedy that Stanley's mother died so young. She was like 22 or 20, maybe 22. But had she not died, Papa would never have met and married Mama.
There you go.
None of us would have been. Our daughter and son, our wonderful little grandson.
See, it's all part of the plan, right? It's all part of the giant plan.
Well, or it works out. I don't know if it's necessarily planned that way.
Right.
But
well, these are all existential philosophical questions.
These are really hard ones, man.
But it does. I mean, I think when I was a Christian, I would say all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose.
Right.
And so here's this bad thing that happened, and yet, had it not happened, Charlie wouldn't exist. I mean,
who would we be talking to now? I don't know. Yeah. Nobody. I don't know.
Well, maybe there's some sort of universal law or something like, because many religions believe that. Taoism.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of religions and a lot of philosophies believe that there's a path of a greater good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that could be just some superimposed notion that they stuck over all this chaos,
Yeah. Well, and I think, evolution and survival, and natural selection.
The natural selection,
is the will to live.
Yeah.
So my first wife died, the will to, the instinct, I mean, not necessarily the volition, but just the drive to keep reproducing and keep living and keep creating happiness for oneself.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that's a good point, and it's even short-lived evolution because this man, this Papa, his determination is reflected in his daughters, and his daughters' children.
Yeah, it keeps going.
Yeah.
In fact, we were talking just yesterday. This is a little bit of a side rail, but the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus said it's if you've lusted after a woman in your heart, then you've committed adultery. So it's a sin. And yet the only reason that we are here as a species is because we lust after each other.
Well, good point.
And it doesn't really stop when you're in your 70s, I might add.
What?
Baby.
That was my next question, Smitty.
This is getting embarrassing.
I'm telling you, I'm 51 and I keep waiting. I work on a college campus, for God's sake. Yeah. And I just feel like the dirtiest old man because there's the most beautiful women in the world right there, And I keep thinking this is going to wane. I'm going to wind down. And
you need a little low T, as they say.
What is that?
Testosterone. Low testosterone.
Oh, I need to lower my testosterone? Well, I am losing my hair, and that's actually part of having high testosterone.
Oh, well, there you go.
Anyway, good grief. How'd we get off that?
I don't know.
So Smitty says at 72, it's still there.
Yeah.
Isn't that
That's
nice?
not very hopeful, because I'm kind of wishing I would, tone down that drive.
Oh no! I mean, think of this. You don't have a lot going when you're in your 70s, but I mean,
but you got that.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
No.
oh, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Charlie and I have a saying. Like when we're out shoveling snow, 2 feet of snow, and we get done, we high five each other and say, "We can still do that."
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
That's outstanding. What? Now we know that Charlie's a seamstress. Well, what line of work are you in, or were you in, Henry?
Okay, we build handcrafted wooden jewelry boxes and keepsake boxes, and we've been doing it for almost 15 years.
Okay.
How about that? And then you go to craft shows and stuff?
We used to go to craft shows, and
No more.
and I might add that was a very important part of our growing up in this thing.
Yeah.
And we did the consignment, of course, in the retail stores.
Right.
But currently, we're strictly online.
Just
We're
online.
Etsy.
Oh, great. So do we go to
Yeah.
like Henry and Charlie's jewelry boxes at Etsy or something? Where do we find you?
No, it's Mountain View Wood. Mountain View Wood.
Okay.
We will put that on our
We'll
website
put a link to that.
so that people will
Yeah.
find you if they want to check out your boxes there.
I want to hear the courtship story. I want to hear how you guys met.
Oh, dear.
Can I?
Go ahead.
I moved to Dallas in 1969. And I ran into a friend of mine I knew in college. And I had my guitar. And we were sitting around drinking wine or something. And he said, "There's these 2 gals that live right across the way here. Let's go meet them." So we went over there. And there was Charlie and there was Lynn. And both of them were, just totally hot.
Thank you, dear.
And how can I say this? Charlie, fill me in, kind of fill in the blanks here, because you were one of the hotties. Okay.
Well, you walked in and we said, "Well, we'll fix you a spaghetti supper one night." Yeah, we were all talking, and so he came over and we fixed spaghetti supper. And he says, "Okay, I tell you what," he said, "I'll round up a friend," and he said, "The 2 of you can fight over him, and I'll take whoever's left." So somehow Lynn always wound up with him, and I always wound up with the other guy, and we would double date.
Wait, Lynn would end up with Henry?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were Henry and I were just friends. Actually, both of us were coming off of a serious relationship that had gone sour, and neither one of us interested in getting serious about anything.
Yeah.
And actually, we did date a few times. There were a few times that we wound up together. We went dancing because we liked to dance. And in fact, I was so intent on us just being friends that we would dance all the fast ones, and the slow ones we would sit at the booth, and I would get sleepy because maybe I'd had a glass of wine, and so I'd get sleepy and kind of doze through the slow ones. Then we'd get up and dance the fast ones. And a few times coming home, things kind of clicked, and there would be a kiss, and then there was kind of this Mexican standoff of, "I'm going to pretend that it didn't happen, and you do the same."
Whoa, just a little secret.
Yeah, we were good friends, but there were feelings there that neither of us wanted to really acknowledge at the point.
Okay, so on these nights that you guys would go dancing, Lynn was still thinking that she was with Henry, and you were kind of with the other one?
Not really. I mean, we both dated other people. I don't remember how. Smitty, do you remember? Probably she had something else going, and you wanted to go dancing, and I was available, and.
Quite frankly, at that point, I didn't really give a shit.
About Lynn or about who you were with?
About Lynn.
Yeah.
So, Henry, part of your aversion to hooking up with Lynn, was it still like you were still recovering from that relationship that went south and your heart was sore and you didn't want to jump into another one, or what?
No, I like Charlie.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Easy as that.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I want to get back to Henry's religious story. So I guess what I need to hear in order to bring us back to the core.
Yeah, the reason.
This show is all about deconstructing one's faith and how that can be painful and traumatic and lonely. So I guess, how devoted were you as a Christian at any point in your life, Henry?
When I was a kid, it was just, all I wanted to do was go outside and play and ride my bike. I had no idea what this getting saved business was about.
Right.
I was sort of a skeptic. I always ask why. And I got saved at 9. I think I told you that in my bio. It was like a do or die thing. There were these children's evangelical or gospel meetings, and I decided, okay, this is it. I've got to solve this. I've got to resolve this thing. And so I decided that if my cousin went down front, I'd go down front.
Right.
My cousin went down front, and I didn't move. I was, and so finally I got up and I went down, and it was a little late, and I was way down on the right end of the line of these kids kneeling up front, and getting prayed for.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was time to get on with the service, and everybody got up and left, and nobody ever came and prayed with me.
Uh-oh.
So I went and sat down, and I said, cool, I'm saved. And that was it.
Okay.
Bear in mind, though, understand that I was raised in that environment. And so my whole life, as Charlie might say, it was a fiber of my being. Mm-hmm. But I was not just on fire for Jesus. Mm-hmm. But when I moved to Dallas, this was after school, Army, school, and a year at my first job in Washington, D.C. I moved back to Dallas, and my parents told me, well, Karen Brown is in Dallas. Karen Brown was some gal that I knew from our church. And I said, oh, cool. And they said, here's her phone number. We'll give her a call. So I did. I talked to her, and she said that she was going to Schofield Memorial Church, which is right next to Dallas Theological Seminary.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
She said there was a young adults class, and there were a lot of kids. I said, girls? Yeah, okay. So I went. We didn't even go to the sermon. The Sunday school class was over. We sat around and ate donuts. I said, why aren't we going in there? And they said, no, that's too boring. And that's the way I'm pointing this out, because that's the way church was back in those days. It was boring. Mm-hmm. There was no guitars, trap sets, and rousing music or anything like that. Mm-hmm. To make a long story short, I went from there to we found a group of people who were attempting to create a New Testament church. Mm-hmm. Using the New Testament and primarily Paul's writings. Mm-hmm. The two founders of this church were both Dallas Theological graduates. Mm-hmm. One was currently at that time teaching Greek at DTS, and the other was driving a cab. He wasn't really, he didn't take his degree too seriously. And they were starting this church, and we had a handful of people, maybe 20, 25 people, meeting in a house, age from teenage to maybe mid-30s. The emphasis was on building this church, and it was cool. It was a good group, and I was very interested in it. It turned Charlie off terribly because it was just not her thing.
Were you dating at that time or already married?
No, we were dating. Mm-hmm. We were not married.
Now, wait a second. So Charlie's turned off by this. So Charlie, I think, one of the things that you've mentioned is the liturgy, the tradition, the ritual, mm-hmm. the mm-hmm. beauty,
music,
of the liturgical church and the more high church.
Yes.
So these group of hippies starting a church from scratch, that just wasn't measuring up.
Not really.
But to Henry, this is exciting. I'm actually a part of a startup, mm-hmm. and we're going to do it right. All these other Christians are boring. And we're going to do it right.
Much.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, that's about it. However, one of our members' brother came in from Chicago, and he was talking about something called the baptism of the Holy Spirit.
Here we go.
And it was new. We'd never heard of it. And speaking in tongues.
Right.
Which was anathema.
Yeah.
Sure.
You just didn't do it back in those days.
Yeah.
So he kind of glommed on us that I was living with one of the founders and another guy. So there's three of us. And he talked to us, and we said, sure, why not? And so he prayed with us individually.
Mm-hmm. To receive it.
To receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit.
Laying on of hands.
Laying on of hands and with the evidence of speaking in tongues. However, that just wasn't my bag. So since I didn't really burst forth with tongues, they said, well, okay, he got it anyway. So
you always get it, and you don't even have to worry about it. Like when you were a kid.
Yeah, all I got to do is just wave my hand.
That's right.
So one by one, he lays hands on your two friends, and they speak in tongues. He comes to you, lays hands on you. You don't. And they're like,
Yeah, I said, I think I understand all about this. And it was cool. I was excited about it.
yeah.
It was sort of like this. If you want to look at Christianity as a painting that had been up in the attic for years, it was dirty, dusty, and not well defined at all. After we began studying scriptures and looking, and it changed my whole outlook. Suddenly, it was like somebody had cleaned that painting, and it became very vibrant.
Yeah.
And and very well defined.
Right. Good metaphor.
You know, yeah. God parted the seas for Moses. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, the Holy Spirit could do that. You know, Jesus healed this. Jesus did that. Sure. You know, that was no sweat there. It was just a whole different way of looking at things.
Yeah, and you guys were plugging into that power.
Yeah. Yeah. We were all part of it, you know. But the only problem was there was nowhere to go. There was no churches. There was no prayer groups that we knew of. So we just sort of did our own thing. The guy went back up to Chicago and gave us some books that we might read. One of them was Speaking in Tongues by John Sherrill. Mm-hmm. And we went to the Baptist bookstore to get that book. She ran us out.
Oh, yeah.
We finally found it at the Berean bookstore. We learned that there was a Episcopal church in Houston. It's about 4 or 5 hours away, called Church of the Redeemer. That was a spirit-filled Episcopal church. Bear in mind that this, what would you call it, the new charismatic movement was really started by an Episcopal priest.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Bennett, Father Bennett.
Yeah.
And back in early 1960s. So I could see the tie in there. So we went to this church. This big church, beautiful place. Nothing happened. No tongues. No
manifestations
whatsoever. And we were a little disappointed, and we're getting ready to leave, and lo and behold, I see my girl cousin, Mary Ann, raised in the same tradition that I was raised in. And we got to talking, and she was married to the youth minister there at the church, invited us over to lunch, and she sat down and says, this is the way it is. And she was able to bring me in with my background as it was, because I was hung up on some things. Mm-hmm. And so we went back all excited, and which got us kicked out of our little church that we love so much, the New Testament church. They said, you're practicing a different religion. You either change or leave. Yeah. We left.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, and being a graduate of Dallas Theological, Dallas was anti-gifts and signs and manifestations. I mean, Dallas, very conservative. Yeah. In fact, Jack Deere was a guy that was a former teacher there. He wrote a book called Surprised by the Power of the Holy Spirit, because here he was, conservative, Dallas Theological, and he, probably around the same time as you're talking about, Henry, he got involved with somebody, laid hands on him, he got filled with the Holy Ghost and spoke in tongues, and he was like, wow, here's this new thing. Well, he gets kicked out of Dallas Theological, and he starts this, becomes a part of this movement of Pentecostalism and charismania, we call it.
Charismania. True.
I call it cosmetics.
Yeah, okay. What it appears.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that stuck with me, though, that whole thing, because it really changed my life. Now, about that time, Charlie and I, where we had a slight separation, I began thinking at age 30, I need to get on with my life. So I called up Charlie, and long story short, we got married.
I got to get on with things.
Yeah.
Well, he called to tell me that he was about to take a job, and his company was transferring him to Boston. What he doesn't tell you is that I almost didn't go out with him because I knew I had feelings for him, and I thought, no, we're going to go out. I'm going to really fall in love, and then he's going to move off to Boston.
Well,
and
guess what?
I did, yeah, yeah. But we did go out. I thought, well, what's one dinner? And then, at one point he said, I want to take you with me. I want you to go to, and in those
Please
days,
come to Boston. Yeah. She said no.
Yeah. But in those days, I want you to come with me meant we're going to get married. I mean, that was, it was a different world back then. Yeah. So
was he on bended knee when he said that?
No.
Actually, I was sitting in the car. We were.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we were in the car, and that was in February, and we got married in April.
Wow.
So,
And you both
Yeah.
headed to Boston.
Wow.
yep.
And we headed to Boston, and I became more involved with the Episcopal Church.
But the more conservative version, or these
Actually,
No, the regular traditional.
Yeah.
Traditional up in
Yeah.
Boston.
So that made Charlie happy too.
Well, sure. It was fine. And I kind of put all that behind me, that other stuff. And
It was a phase.
it was sort of a phase. And then we moved to Lubbock, Texas. Now, Lubbock's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there.
literally.
So our idea was to go back to school. I was going to get a master's in something or other. Charlie was going to finish her degree, her undergraduate and graduate degrees in speech and hearing therapy. So we landed in Lubbock, and Charlie had a job at a restaurant, a cafe restaurant, and she met some kids. Tell them about that.
Oh, okay. I was working in a pancake house. It was a local place there.
You a server?
Yeah, I was a server, and actually, and there was this group. It was young kids, and they were really nice. And I was walking with my arms, with plates on and everything, and I slipped on something and fell. I mean, I just fell right on my rear, and they came running over. Are you okay? They were just so concerned, and I was so impressed with them. And I don't know, somehow it came about. They were a singing group at a church there in Lubbock. Oh, you must come. So we went to that church, and it turned out it was a charismatic, interdenominational church.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were, the one thing about the charismatic, the involvements we've had, because we were at a charismatic Episcopal church later on, very warm, caring, loving people.
Yeah.
You did have some that were into the prosperity thing, but the people we've been close to were just loving, caring people.
It was a going Jesse too. There were people coming in from the Baptist Church, the Presbyterian, Methodist, Catholic, Church of Christ, getting filled with the Holy Spirit.
Andre Crouch. I remember they would have groups that would come and sing. Andre Crouch came. We actually got to meet him, and
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was just and Cass, I think you've mentioned this. You still love that music.
Oh yeah.
I still like that, man.
Yeah.
Well, it was a dynamic time. It was a dynamic church, and it was growing, and it was on fire, and
Yeah.
you guys were part of it, got caught up in it.
Yeah. It was great, and that was of course, they were fundamentally evangelical. They had a real nice pastor who, I like to say, it was not your typical pew jumping, ankle biting, dog barking, charismatic church.
Yeah.
But there were the manifestations, and so it was a good introduction. But we left Lubbock, and I'm going to eventually get into the deconstruction phase here, because we left Lubbock, went to Dallas. We had our first child there in Lubbock.
Yes.
Did either of you get the degrees you went there to get?
No.
Okay.
No, we decided our higher priority was to start a family, and then and actually we're told I had ulcerative colitis when I was 20 and nearly died with it. It was long. I was in the process of changing majors and working 19 hours and carrying 3 jobs, and I think probably that stress probably had something to do with it.
I imagine so.
Wow.
So you had I read in your bio, you had your entire colon removed.
Oh yeah, the whole thing.
My.
And I had extreme peritonitis. I mean, it was 2 months in the hospital, a month of it in intensive care, and did pull through all that. But when we went to have a family, my doctor said, "Well, I want to contact the doctors who were involved in your in your care, make sure it's safe." And they all said, "Well, it would be safe, but she's probably not going to get pregnant. It's going to be.
It ain't going to happen."
It isn't going to happen. Well. We did have 6 months later. I was pregnant with Elizabeth, and our little miracle, beautiful child.
3.5 years later, we had David.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the hell with
So
that. Well, we went to Dallas, and we had the 2 kids. But we attended a charismatic Episcopal church in Dallas, Church of the Resurrection, and it was a great place. We loved it.
yes,
We were there for 9 years, and we still have friends from there that we're in contact with.
wonderful priest, Father Ted Nelson, and words of wisdom from him that we still.
He was a cussing priest.
He was wonderful. He was wonderful.
That he was great. We went through that.
Real person.
And I think one of the significant things that happened around that time, of course, I became Episcopalian. I went through confirmation classes.
Okay.
And generally when that happens, you end up knowing more than the cradle Episcopalians because you just got through classes.
Yeah.
But around 1977, we ran into these people who were protesting against abortion. They were protesting abortion doctors, and it just turned us off. You know, and it was sort of like the thrill is gone, man. These evangelicals, that's it. And although we did go to evangelical churches, it just seemed like that it just got worse and worse. The charismatics suddenly got into the prosperity doctrine, and we eventually ended up back in the Episcopal Church. But somewhere along the line, I picked up a book called The Original Blessing. Now, I had been skeptical for some time. Matthew Fox, a priest, Catholic priest, wrote The Original Blessing, and it was basically about original blessing versus original sin.
Yeah.
And he refuted it. He blasted it. And he actually pointed out the psychological detriment of the doctrine of original sin. And I bought it. That was it for me.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't believe, at that point, I didn't believe in the earth creation thing anyway. So that was basically like kicking out the bricks, and the whole thing started collapsing. If you don't have original sin, and you don't need to be saved, what do you need to be saved from?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it just, a lot of thinking along that line. Somebody save that kid.
Oh my.
Well,
Charlie?
She's down here with me now, and she's
Yes.
All right.
Is she hungry?
She wants to go outside.
Oh, okay.
All right. So anyway, that trip to Singapore affected me the same way as it did Charlie. Well, we were right together on that. That's just not going to work, you know. And I began thinking in terms of a universal God.
Yeah.
If it was good for the earth, it was good for the universe.
Yeah.
And I began to think in terms of universal laws of God, gravity, but also moral laws, the law of reciprocity.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
And
Karma.
You know, it's in all the religions. And, you know, I was just gradually drifting away from Christianity.
Yeah.
We moved to Colorado in 2000, started going to a little Episcopal church here. And the priest came in
25 churches in your lifetime. Seriously.
Not quite, but
it's been a big part of your lives.
Sure.
I'll tell you what, at least 3 of them we left because of scandals.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, there's always a scandal. But we came up here to Colorado, and the priest was Patton Boyle, and he was sort of an interim priest. This particular church we were going to had just fallen apart and split over gays, I guess.
Yeah.
And he was the hired gun that they brought in to kind of pull it back together, and we loved him. So he came and visited us, and we had a nice chat, and I was telling him about some of the stuff I'd been reading, and he says, I've written this book. It's called Screaming Hawk. And the book was totally
fiction.
It was totally fiction. About a guy who was a professor in the religion department of some school in the Northwest. And he decided he wanted to go learn a little bit about Native American philosophy and religion. And so he went and asked to stay with a tribe of Indians over the summer, and he kind of got with the medicine man. And the medicine man began teaching him about the Great Spirit, about spirits, about the spirits of animals, and all this kind of stuff. And he taught him about the path of the greater good. And we ate that up. We read that book. I read it. Charlie read it. Our daughter read it. And it was fantastic. And I kind of let Christianity go after that. I mean, I was really into. I was reading about Taoism, and and I became more of a deist.
Yeah.
Because the path of the greater good says that God doesn't really get into your shit.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly how they say it too.
Well, it is.
Get out of here.
When you've experienced, theism, not only just in the face of tragedy, like, suffering and things, but also just how much in people's business this God gets.
Yeah.
And then therefore the followers of that God get up in everybody else's business. This is the abortion protest and such.
Yeah.
And so a God that is mysterious and unnamed and unknowable and unfathomable and just the mystery of the cosmos, the source of morality, the source of life, but yet unknowable, not human in any way, shape, or form, and anybody who thinks they know and can define and box in this God that's a small God. And so this deism is extremely wonderful step out of theism. I took it as well.
That's like the first big step.
Yeah.
God, there may be a God, but he's not
just
going to be in your life.
Exactly, and that makes a lot of sense when you're looking at suffering or whatever. It's like, well, why doesn't God do something about this? Because He doesn't do shit about anything. He doesn't. You take God off the hook. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I get you.
Yeah. Well, this whole nature thing, this whole spirit of the creation and so on, struck home for both of us because we live in Colorado. We live near the national park with elk and deer, and we deal with wood.
Yeah, you're crafting the wood, yeah.
And so there's
very
this
close to nature.
Yeah, close to nature. So that really rung true. And so that was kind of it with Christianity. We were still going to Episcopal Church, and I was actually a reader. I would read the Psalm, and I'd read the Old Testament lesson, and that was fine with me. But they had a book sale or a book giveaway at the church. They were getting rid of the stuff out of the library, and I picked up this book called Why Christianity Must Change or Die.
Oh, yeah, John Shelby Spong.
By John Shelby Spong, bishop. He was a bishop.
Right.
Yeah.
And I started reading it.
Oh, my.
And
that's a great book.
Oh, he starts going through the Nicene Creed.
Yeah.
We believe in one God, Father Almighty, and so on and so forth. And he just picked it apart. One word. He goes on and on and on. But
he's brilliant. He's brilliant. Absolutely great.
Yeah, I read that book. That book changed my life too.
Yeah.
It was okay. By the time I got through with that book, I unfriended God.
Right.
That was it. Now Charlie didn't read the book, and she did not take that direction. I'm often said that if you just absolutely have got to be a Christian, be an Episcopalian.
Yeah. Or just be open-minded like Charlie is. I mean,
she's a good person.
She's
and
I think that's where we got to get to the crux of is just like how you guys work this out, and that you're Henry, you're not trying to deconvert her. Charlie, you're not trying to convert him back.
Right.
No, once again, I feel like he is who he is, and he could pretend to be.
Thank you.
What he thinks I want him to be, but that's not what I want him to be. And
I wish everybody understood like that what you just said, because all of our Christian friends want us to just go back. And you just said in a nutshell, Charlie, the greatest wisdom that I wish the Christian world would get. And it's like, yeah, I could fake it.
Yeah.
And say what you want me to hear, but I am what I am, and I know what I know, and I can't just unlearn it.
Yeah.
Just because you want me to. So you don't assign any malice to Henry for making this decision. It's the decision he's made, and and in some ways he didn't make it.
Well, he's being true to who he is.
Exactly. Thank you.
And my way of feeling, God created him who he is, and I have a strong faith. That's just part of that's part of my life. It was my parents. My dad was not. He didn't necessarily have conventional Christian beliefs, I don't think, but I'm convinced that I'll see him again. Okay. And like I say, I think you are who you are, and it's and Smith's he's a good person. He's a caring, compassionate person.
This is being recorded, Charlie.
That's right. Be careful.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, seriously, and I mean, yeah, I can't change who he is or what he believes. I mean, that's what's in his being is who he is.
Well, and you have love and respect for him, and he has love and respect for you. So why would you want to change anybody? You know,
or leave? That's the other thing. Is just like you guys are good to go because you're not trying to change each other, and you're not disappointed or mad at the other for being or believing what you believe. Somehow, this is working.
Well, okay. Let me say this, and Cash, you'll certainly identify with this. I went through my bitter stage.
Okay, yeah, angry,
angry, and I would generalize. I'd say those Christians, and she'd say, no, they're not all the same.
Right.
And I'd say, oh, okay. And so I started to clarify that, and those evangelical Christians, and she really did take the edge off of that. There's a tendency for newly deconstructed Christians to be somewhat sacrilegious and to put down.
Yeah.
And she made it very clear that I would not do that.
It was painful because it's something that means a lot to me, and frankly, I don't think I find it hard for anybody to be critical or sarcastic about anybody else's faith, about the Muslim faith, the Jewish faith, any faith. It's just not right. This is something that is sacred, and I don't think you stomp on something that is sacred, and it's not, and particularly where it's not hurting someone. It's I just think that's wrong. And by the way, when he said the evangelicals, even then, I think you have to, I think it's the extreme ones. I know many people who are evangelicals who are not that way, who are good people.
Well, there's a couple of things going on here. One, I will say this about faiths and beliefs. I'm sorry, but nobody gets a pass just because it's sacred. And like you said, if they're not hurting anybody, then
exactly.
Then we don't care.
Right.
But when shit is done in the name of God that is painful and hurtful, they don't get a pass just because it's sacred or something. So I just want to say that.
Well, in fact, we just had.
We agree totally. Oh, wow,
yeah. It was something on a website. I mean, on Facebook. I'm sorry, and my daughter and I both commented, and I made the comment that I think Jesus must be in extreme anguish over a lot of things that are going on in his name right now.
Absolutely.
He's saying, that is not what I said. That is not what I... Yeah.
Well, and this is where it gets ugly, because everybody's going to say, my Jesus said this, well, my Jesus said that, and it gets ugly. The other thing that's going on is you guys mentioned that several of the churches that you were at, there was scandal. And so, hypocrisy in the church, it shows up. Well, I got a story that yesterday I was at NanoCon, which is Nashville Nuns Convention, which is none of the above, no religious affiliation. So it's an atheist conference.
Okay.
Not Catholic nun, but NONES.
Yeah.
So it's a Nashville Atheist Convention. And we have workshops and speakers, and then we break for lunch, and there were some food trucks that pulled up, and everybody's lined up getting food. And one particular woman, like when they gave her food, I don't know if it took too long, or I think there was some kind of something was wrong with it.
Okay.
And she had a fucking meltdown.
Oh.
And just tore into these people. Now, I wasn't there to witness it, but I heard about it later.
Yeah.
So here I am. I mean, when I was a Christian, I cared about representing Christianity.
Yeah.
Here I am, an atheist, and these food truckers are coming into this atheist convention, and they get chewed out by this atheist. And, of course, what are they going to do? They're going to broad brush the rest of us.
Yeah, sure.
And just say, those atheists are assholes.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is that assholes are everywhere. And so you're going to have asshole Muslims, you're going to have asshole Christians, you're going to have asshole atheists. Mm-hmm. And I think what Charlie was teaching Henry is don't broad brush me with those assholes, because I'm not that.
Yeah.
And it hurts for you to lump me together with those assholes.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't so much her. It was more just because Charlie has dear friends
Yeah.
who are evangelicals.
Yeah, and it's just
You know,
never fair to broad brush. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's just never fair.
Yeah.
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 I might add that Cass and Bob helped me out along this line too. One of my favorite sayings is still, "Don't throw Jesus out with the bathwater."
Well, actually, we both did, but there are some principles that are humanist principles that are in the scriptures, and so in some ways they're there, and when you find them, you don't necessarily have to say, "Well, I don't believe that," just because it's in the Bible. I mean, you can swing the other way.
Sure.
To where now that it's in the Bible, I hate it. Like when Jesus said, "Love your neighbor." Oh, I think it's evil. No, it's still true. It's still good.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, you find it wherever you find it.
You find it wherever you find it. That's it.
Well, it just so happens that I heard those stories all my life. You know, I was the kind of guy who really dug in and studied.
He's still that way.
I want Charlie to comment on something, though. You've commented to me that there are certain things that you really kind of miss. Oh, by the way, we don't go to church.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie doesn't go to church. I don't go to church. And about 2010, Charlie said, "I don't want to go to church anymore." You might elaborate on that, Charlie.
Well, for one thing, I knew, Smitty's feelings had totally changed. I understood that, and I respected that. I had no interest in going by myself. And plus, it just had, I guess it had reached a point, it was just difficult to go. I can't say exactly why. And I do miss certain aspects. I miss the companionship, although it's interesting, you would visit, and there were people that I enjoyed seeing. You just see them briefly, for a few minutes, once a week. And, we didn't really get together with any of them otherwise. But we work 6 days a week. So, we work 5 days a week, and then 1 day a week we go and play with our grandson. We babysit our little grandbaby while our daughter works at home, which is just our favorite day of the week. But, we have, on the weekends, we work 1 day of the weekend to kind of make up for that because we need to. So, it's kind of hard. That's one thing. We just need the time one day that we can kind of do other things, and we can just maybe take the day off.
Sure. Yeah.
But I do miss us going. It was something that was special to the two of us, and that is not there anymore. So there are times that I miss that. Sure. But it is what it is, and I certainly don't feel that God holds it against me because I don't go to church. We occasionally there's a little church up in the mountains a little Episcopal church, and it's a very traditional, very reminiscent of what I grew up with. And we have been there in the past, and I'd like one day just to go there, and so, there's no expectations.
Yeah. So Charlie, how do you reconcile hell? The doctrine of hell? Then, do you hold that close, or do you just put that away?
No, I mean I don't see a hell of fire and brimstone. One priest years ago described it to me. He said, "I think it's just a place that's lonely, that you're apart from God." I don't really think that much about heaven and hell.
You better not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it too much, you're going to either become a hateful person or you're going to throw it out. Because for you to just go along with your life, I mean, your husband's going to go to that lonely place. How does that make you feel?
No, he is not.
Shut up.
No.
Why isn't he?
I feel because he's not a mean person. No, I don't even know what I think. Yeah, I do think as far as the afterlife, I feel very confident that one way or another, I will have some kind of communication with the people I love that have gone on before me. I don't know what it is. I really don't think that much about it and try to understand all that. I mean, as it is, I keep pretty busy just with our work and with trying to run the household and everything else that is in our life. I don't have a lot of time to dwell on that.
So Charlie, you're saying there's no streets of gold and throwing crowns?
Well,
down
no,
I don't
think of that. Now I do. Okay, to me, sometimes I think the idea of reincarnation makes a lot of sense because, and a lady I once worked for who was very wise, we were talking about that one day, and I said, well, sometimes when you think about it, reincarnation makes sense. And she said, yes, but not only that, that person is there and they know what they did in the past. They know this is why they're in the situation they are now. I just look at some of the evil stuff that I see going on, particularly in politics, and I think, do they really get a pass? Or do maybe they come back in a future life and you say, oh my gosh, I knew what I was doing. They have to know what they're doing is wrong. And my goodness, I have to suffer. I have to see somebody suffer this. Ooh, I was a part of that. Maybe I can be a change. I don't know. That makes a lot more sense to me than, burning an eternity in hell. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, if it gives you comfort, I suppose. It's hard to figure out, using science or anything like that. But it's a faith. That's why they call it faith, I guess.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt anybody, so why not, right?
No, but I do think there's communication with the spirits of our family members, our pets. We've had pets that, they have spirits.
I was going to get to that because I know you can talk to cats, and I want to find. Just tell me that story.
Okay, don't put this in the podcast.
Wow.
Let's hear it.
This is gold.
It's going in.
Oh, no. We were sitting here one day talking, and we had these two cats at the time, Sissy and Pepper. And you know how cats, when they're looking at something, they'll turn their whole head. They don't move their eyes like we do.
Right.
These cats move their eyes like we do.
Oh, that's creepy.
They'd be sitting there and they'd look at something, and they were fun little kitties. They lived till almost 17 years old. And I made the comment, I said, wouldn't it be strange if cats were actually little aliens in little cat bodies? And
cat aliens.
So
cat aliens.
Aliens.
That's her email.
And so that is So that's where the term catalian.
No, wait a second. So for real, your cats would side eye?
Yeah.
Oh, they would. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that is creepy.
It was strange.
You don't see that very often.
But I love that. Cat aliens. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to wrap it up. We're out of time. But I think one thing we can say here is you're a beautifully sweet, fun couple.
Oh, lovely.
And you guys, I think you mentioned in your bio, Henry, that a lot of times, sometimes people, as they get older, they get more conservative, whereas you guys have gotten more liberal. And you've loosened up and you've lightened up, and it's worked well for you. And
you can certainly tell you love each other very much.
Yeah, it's been good to hear your story and to share it. And I think hopefully couples that are what we call mixed religious, or their religions or their beliefs are not aligned, and yet they find space and common ground to respect and love one another and trust one another. I think respect and trust are crucial to marriage.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Anything to put a bow on it? You want to wrap it up with conclusion?
Can I say two things? When we first married, we did agree that we would go to church together, and it wouldn't necessarily be an Episcopal church. And through the years, we went to different ones.
Yeah,
I think that the underlying thought was that we are together, and we will grow together. Just generally, and part of that growth has been through our two children.
Okay.
Because we decided back when they were teenagers, we thought, our relationship with them is very important, and nothing supersedes that. Mm-hmm. It's, and our relationship with each other. And through the years, we've grown a lot through the two of them. We have learned from them.
Are they religious?
No.
No.
So that's what you learned from them.
But they're spiritual. I would say they're both spiritual people, and they're incredible individuals. I mean, I know we're prejudiced because we're parents, but they are. Mm-hmm. You could ask the friends that they have. It's so obvious people think so highly of both of them.
Yeah.
Well, I would think so.
And they've taught us a lot.
Yeah. Look where the fruit from the tree fell, or whatever I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean.
Good genes.
Yeah.
How old are your kids now?
Elizabeth she will turn 44 in August. Wow. And David just turned 40.
Okay. And is he the PhD in Germany or something? What did I read?
Yeah. He's in Germany, Leipzig, Germany.
Wow.
And he likes it there? Does he like Leipzig?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He loves living there.
What does he teach?
He's not in academia directly.
Okay.
He does work with the University of Leipzig. He works for a company called, well, let me back up. His degree is physics, PhD, and it's nanophysics.
Oh, man. Wow. Outstanding.
So he's very into cell structures, DNA, and I like to tell people drug delivery.
Well, you're in Colorado.
Basically what that means is that they develop these little designer DNA boxes and put one molecule of a drug in it, and the DNA is designed such that it is attracted to a certain organ or part of the body.
Wow.
And it's then delivered. So that's the drug delivery thing.
That's amazing. That's great, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
he really
yeah.
will.
Yeah.
He really will change the world. What he's up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super.
Seriously. He's a real cool kid.
Awesome.
I bet.
What did your daughter do for career?
She used to say, please don't. She used to say, please don't tell anybody that I'm a programmer. My parents still think that I play piano in a whorehouse.
Okay.
That's funny. Oh, gosh.
So she's a programmer.
She's a programmer. She started out in physics many years ago.
Huh. God, you have two very, very sharp kids.
Yeah, they're smarter than we are. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
She started out in physics, and then
Yeah.
she didn't really care for physics, but physics loved her because she immediately became the secretary in the physics club, which was all male.
Ah.
Yeah.
And then she switched over to philosophy and French.
Wow. I'm telling you.
And she was doing well. I mean, she was doing fine and these things. And one day she said, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this philosophy.
Yeah.
I don't want to teach. And I said, well, okay. And then she said, I think maybe I'll try something like Japanese women's studies or something like that. I'm going to listen. She's going to listen to this podcast later on and she's going to kill me. But anyway,
Oh, well.
I said, you know what? And this was back in 90s. Computers in school weren't that popular.
No.
They had a course called Computers, and it was a course in Pascal language or something like that. And she was doing well. So I said, look, do this for me. Just try a few courses in computer science. And from there, it's history. She just took off.
Wow. Well, you know, it's thanks to Charlie, actually, because the intelligence comes from the mother, you know.
Oh, really?
Is that true?
Thank you.
That is so evident in this family.
Yeah. You want to say anything in conclusion, Henry?
Oh, this has been nice. I really, really enjoyed this.
Oh.
I will say this. I cannot say enough good about you guys and this podcast. I mean, it's so professional. It's so well done.
Yeah.
And it's just the way you guys handle it is remarkable.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Oh, gosh, thanks.
We enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And meeting people like we wouldn't be having this talk if it weren't for
it's
this
great
podcast.
to meet people
I mean,
like you. I wish we lived closer. You're the kind of guy that would be fun just to go and hang out with and have a beer. You know what I mean? Just
I can
sort
do
of-
that.
Yeah, I mean, just sort of say, hey, what about this? What about that? You know, pick up your wisdom. You have a lot of wisdom there.
He is fun.
I get. Yeah. Well, you know, there's one thing about being married to a good example.
Oh,
And I'm married to a good example.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's great.
thank you, dear.
Yeah, so Henry and Charlie Smith,
Oh, great.
he goes by Smitty.
Smitty, yeah. What a lovely couple. I mean, you know, just two lovely, loving, respecting of each other, you know, at an older age and stuff. I think it's great.
And we get to peer into their lives.
What a wonderful, sweet life.
Yeah.
You know, just so good. So good.
And, you know, that story is going on times a million all over the world.
Sure.
Is just sweet people. And religion because it's been toned down and dialed back.
Yeah.
And actually, I have to, she basically admitted, I don't give it that much thought.
That's right.
And that's the reason that she's, can hang on to certain things. Is because if you actually did think it through, you'd probably have to
what a
punt.
comforting thought to think I'm going to see the people I love again. It's a wonderful, comforting thought. I mean, it's
really hard to let go.
It's a fiction, but it's a wonderful thought. Well, to me, it is anyway.
Yeah.
But to her, it's a real thing. So, and like you said, does that hurt anybody?
It's not in her case, no.
A little bit of a delusion, but why not? Well, that's what I think.
I
That's
totally
just me.
agree, man. And
she would say that's fine if that's how you
she
think.
knows that we believe it's a delusion and doesn't care. I'm going to believe it anyway. Nana, nana, nana.
Yeah, right. Just be you. as
Even
she would
her,
say.
even her own husband would probably say, that's not true. Like scientifically, we can probably assess that the brain dies, the consciousness dies, and there ain't going to be no communication in the afterlife. Yeah. And she's like, I don't care.
Yeah. No, I mean it's.
And he's like, "Good. I'm glad you don't."
What are you
care.
going to do? Get mad and say what? Outrageous and stomp out? No, you know. I mean, she's a kind person, and she's. And if anybody deserves a little fun in the afterlife, it's her. So
there you go.
What the hell?
Right.
Go for it. That's what I say.
So good talk.
Charlie.
Good look into the lives.
I don't know
of
how
others.
you find these wonderful people.
Well, they found me. I mean, the way it works now is I've got so many emails per day from listeners.
Yeah.
And I'll just turn around and say, by the way, you want to share your story? And, half of them say no.
Sure.
And half of them say, I'll think about it.
Yeah, let me think about that. And that's great because these... I've never heard anything like this on the radio or on a podcast before. Yeah. It's just an unusual.
It's kind of StoryCorps, but long.
Yes,
long version.
That's a very good point. It is
of the moth.
Yeah, you're leaving a little bit of your story behind here on the podcast. So, and they're very interesting stories. So I don't mean to pat ourselves on the back here, but it's just
No, it's all good.
I listen to things and I've never heard stuff like this, so that's why I like it. So.
Good show.
Yeah.
Should we?
Let's try again. Absolutely. We're going to get it right one of these days. See you next time.
See ya. Okay, time out. There's that noise it's a clicking right there.
Yeah.
It just happened.
I moved my head. Could it be my earrings?
Yeah.
Could be. Like hitting your earrings.
If the wire is wiggling around and touching things.
Oh, I think we just found it.
Necklace.
Oh, the necklace. Okay.
Got my D-squirrel on.
There's your cat, too. There's your cat.
Yes, she wants it.
She wants to talk.
The cat said, I told you so.
Yeah. I told you it was that damn necklace. You wouldn't listen.
All right.
Okay. I've got the necklace off.
All right,
Awesome.
But now, Charlie, are you gesturing when you're talking?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
This is part of me.
I think it's cute as hell.
I can't talk without my hands.
I know.
All right,
I understand.
What I'm going to do
Too much
here,
Catholic
I'm
school.
going to safety pin the fucking microphone. I just got smacked.
So, Charlie, how do you feel about that kind of language?
Well, we raised two teenagers. What
Okay.
can I say?
You gave up a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.